A very good morning to you today, the 9th of July, 2024. Welcome. This is Smart Means Business, and we are live here at Smart 24 TV. So it's a delight to have you join me. This is Kem Chadorin. I'll be taking you through right away, and then we will be going on from 7 a.m. to 9, and then from 9 to 10 we will have, of course, some business insight coming in, where we'll bring you the perspective, the insight, professional insight of some of the key players within this country and elsewhere. Now, we have been talking about a couple of things. The undertone for this particular conversation, we are going to be looking at the strides that have been made by women, socio-economic empowerment programs in Uganda. This is very dear to my heart for all those that get to know me. One, because we know right now from the preliminary findings of the population census, we of course know that the number of women is much higher than of women. But how productive are they to Uganda? How resourceful are they? And are they being equipped? Those are some of the things we would want to have a look as well. Now, this will be continued further from 9 to 10 in the Business Insight, where we will, of course, host the Minister for Gender. She will be telling us how are they addressing the cyclical gaps that continuously come up over and over within some of these women socio-economic empowerment programs in Uganda. We've had quite a number of cyclical gaps highlighted in the past. And when it comes round to that, of course, you have the others that come out, the different voices that come out and say, you know what is the whole point in having this new program come in? We have lots and lots of programs coming in. But let me just give you a sneak peek into what else we will be having, because we have the national news, regional, as well as international. Now, just to give you a sneak peek, of course, when it comes to national news, we will be looking at Kenya. Kenya is considering, of course, it has had quite a hiccup, with the different riots that were back home, but we will be looking at what its particular strategies are and what else do they have up there. Yesterday we mentioned that with my colleague here, we mentioned that a couple of new measures had been taken by the president, whereby he had slashed public spending, and he was starting at the top. And this move had been brought in quite a lot of celebration from some of the Kenyan members who were saying, yes, you had expected to really to touch our meal, the meal that we eat at the bottom. Well, this is a good point of reflection to start from the top and come into play, come into forceful, rational movement by scrapping off some of the state agencies, as well as bringing together some of the different, narrowing down actually some of the monies that were to be spent for other particular on other particular activities, but from the top. So this has brought in a little bit of celebration on that part. Now, when it comes to regional news elsewhere, we will be, of course, as well looking at what is happening in the Bank of Uganda, in the Bank of Tanzania, and what their monetary policy committee has decided. There is a benchmark lending rate that is, of course, being talked about. And then, of course, Kenya considers EAC duty withdrawal. Those are some of the issues that are coming up, and some of them we will be talking about. When it comes to international news, I will be hinting on what is happening within ECOWAS. Quite a lot of news coming in here from Smart Means Business. But for now, let me just give you just a little bit of a look into the couple of programs that have been there to improve empowerment of women in Uganda. We've had UWEP come in, that's Uganda Women in Entrepreneurship Program. We've had Youth Livelihood Program come in as well. We've also had the Social Assistance Grants for Empowerment SAGE programs. And of course, you also have investment in security, in infrastructure that is benefiting women in rural areas. And last but not least, you have the presidential initiative of skilling the girl child. Right now, you have as well the boy child part and parcel of that, but it has done quite a lot in skilling the girl child, from equipping them with skills and also the startup capital. You will notice that most of the favorite activities that have been opted for by or chosen by the girls under that program. Not, of course, just a few of them have been baking, tailoring, the cosmetics, cosmetology. Those are some of the basics. But of course, you do have a widening as well of the skilling. You do have welding, the electrical part of it, welding, and then of course bits and bits of others. But the boy child right now, who has for a long time had been crying that he had been isolated and excluded from all this in recent past, in the last couple of years, has actually as well been taken on and is benefiting from this as well. Now, most recently, we have the Grow project that has been looking at the girls, the young women, and those with established businesses. Quite good, a very good project coming in there. But the great thing about it, we did have two specialists from the project get to us and sit down with us to give us insight. Amazing work that they are doing. But what stood out for me the most, of course, is the fact that it attempts to address some of the issues that have been there. Issues such as sustainable, ensuring access to financing for women in business that is sustainable, ensuring change of attitudes, especially from the partner financial institutions. Many women have come out and said, we are still being locked out. I have my business. I've been doing this for quite a number of years, around 10 years. Why can't I access the monies that I want? Why do banks continuously look at me as if I am weak and I don't have any financial power? So these are some of the attitudes that are being challenged by the project. Quite wonderful work going on. We can only hope that this will be sustainable, and of course knowing that in most cases some of the mid-strata as well as upper strata segments of the women in business have still found difficulties but didn't have the voice to come out and say ABCD is happening to us. Well, they get to give you it's almost like a buffet. Like a buffet of all services. You can be able to access financial literacy. You can be able to have your business registered. You can be able to have, if at all you are moving on, transitioning from one part, whether it's a micro to small or small to medium or medium to the next stage, you can be able to be linked up for export. And all these is like a buffet, wonderful buffet. All these services and opportunities and linkages are all present within the Grow project. So this is just one of a kind. And today we are talking about the strides made. We must give due celebration and due accolades where they are meant to be. Honestly, looking at it and how far this has come on, it may have gaps, but let us begin on the celebratory part and look at it. Now, let me just give you just three pillars of empowerment. We have training and education. Of course, we get to see that quite a number of this is happening. More and more women are being called in Uganda. Come in and we train you. It's no longer okay to keep your money under wherever you are keeping them, under the mattresses. Can you please form groups? When you form groups, you will be able to have your savings, you will be able to have your support together, accountability partners, but also when you save within the bank and you are consistent in your savings, the banks will take you on and be able to lend you much more monies than you could have otherwise got individually. So this is something that has really worked out quite well. Most of the saving schemes that we get to see within the urban places as well as upcountry have benefited from this quite immensely. And then the next one is networking. You would see that getting into being able to have a linkage for one or two women just on their own in isolation would be so difficult, but when they come together, then they are able to tap into the potential of networking. We have seen quite a number of businesses benefit from this because they have come together. We had a little bit of insight from an agribusiness called Awan. It's more or less like a grouping of women in agribusiness, and they have benefited from this. Recently, they represented Uganda in Canada, and they came back talking about the different opportunities that were there and the different market potential. When they came back, they actually to the women that we got to speak to, they mentioned things such as packaging and say they had been challenged to up their packaging status, especially in the way they had been treating things, in the way they had been looking at things. So when you do have this networking and then they get out there and then meet others who are a little bit advanced, they do come back when they are more knowledgeable, but also have that oomph, that particular, can we say, that energy to move on and do something much better. All this happens with networking. Now, lastly, we do have, of course, the pillar of support. How have they been supported? Women in business or women that are coming up in agriculture, women that have been for long considered a beast of burden and on the African continent, and this is the reality about it because most of their labor is really unrecognized and unpaid, but the narrative is changing slowly by slowly. Through support, through supportive agencies and through all these different efforts, these women are able to be given the support that is needed, not only just with the inputs. Talk about but getting up to the rural women in agriculture, getting to tell them, you know what, this is how the climate is changing. Can you put in, can you adapt, can your practices be more adaptive in nature? Can you please use this information to do something? Can you please put this crop, like sweet paper, can you add value? Can you use this particular variety of cassava because it will give you, it is more yielding and more resistant than others. All this has been there, and this support really has been given to women in the rural areas as well as the urban places. So we cannot negate that some strides have been made in women socio-economic empowerment. And of course, we get to see the wonderful benefits of that increased participation of women in business development. Wherever you go, women are participating in something. Now, if you get to backtrack and notice a couple of years back, and still happening, we can't negate it, most of the time the concern, and still right now, is that most of the women wake up from morning till evening, but unfortunately their work, their particular work that they're always involved on is on a domestic level, and even when it is not on a domestic level, it is classified under domestic, it's unpaid, it's unrecognized, and does not transition into making money for themselves or for the economy. So what has been happening is, with the change in the mindset, with more training, there has been increased participation of women in business development. In business development, how can we come together and do something that will bring in money, that will improve the quality, the standards of our families and ourselves, and improve the quality of life? Those are amazing discussions that have been taken on. Another thing that has been noticed, of course, is the increased incomes and livelihood security, as well as overall quality of life. This cannot be negated. Now, the burden on the other side, flip the coin. The burden comes in right now that more and more women are now actively engaged in productive activities within the rural areas as well as the urban areas. But with that comes a challenge. That is laxity of the male gender involved in all this at the back of it. And they're saying, okay, now we have been struggling for generations and generations. Now women, we push you forward. It is your turn. Take care of the bills, take care of the burdens. You know, some of these concerns have been brought out there, and even different stakeholders in the education department will tell you it is normally women that are paying fees. Of course, you do have the women, the men that are still doing that, and we thank them immensely. But of course, you do have quite a lot of burden right now going on to the women, because they should be looking, society is now saying you should be looking for something. And later on, the minister will give us some insight. The Minister of Gender will give us some insight into why this is happening and her sentiments regarding that. Quite a lot will be coming on. I will still be talking about what is happening within those particular, within this particular area. Are these strides actually sustainable? And what are those particular negativities that are coming up because of the positive that has been achieved? Of course, we get to see quite a little bit of GBV coming into it, a little bit of mutation of relationships and seeking for dominance by the male gender. quite a number of men as well, and the boy child coming up and saying, no, a lot of emphasis is being put on the women. We have some sentiments as well coming in from that. But we will talk about that later on later on in the discussion. Right now, let's find out what is happening in the papers. Let's get into press review at the moment. And you did get your new vision and daily monitor and find out what is happening. Quite some interesting news. Tenants can't mortgage land without landlord's consent. For you who has been doing that, quite selling your land and thinking that all is well, Chivanja Loans, court issues tough rules. Tenants can't mortgage land without landlord's consent. Quite some dilemma. So what happens? You buy Chivanja, your Chivanja, but you can't mortgage it, you can't get a loan, so it's not actually yours per se. This more news should be found in your new vision. It's quite a complex, it's a dilemma. Museveni forms another anti-corruption unit. The president says corruption is a big problem in Uganda. This has been the talk for quite a couple of weeks. Actually, the naysayers are saying, for how long is this conversation going to be sustained? One, because there has been a little bit of, the ups and downs. Corruption is talked about, and then just one or two are highlighted, maybe, and then thrown into jail for some time to represent the others. And then after that, they're brought out, and it's back to business as usual. But this seems to be now, this conversation is sustained for a couple of weeks now. We are going into maybe 1 month plus. So it's interesting what is really happening. It seems to be quite serious this time. Fuel imports, Uganda protests new 148 billion shillings Mombasa oil terminal charges. And I had mentioned last time, let's wait for the catch. Let's wait for the catch. That's 148 billion. Hardly a week after UNOC celebrated the arrival of its first direct fuel imports, the deal has registered a hitch, and the Kenyan authorities have imposed a $40 million storage fee onto Vital, that's Bahrain Terminal, a private firm that will hold UNOC's imports at the port of Mombasa. I told you there is something that was coming in. There must be. Well, it is a hitch. In the 2024-25 budget, the government introduced a new tax of 100 per litre of fuel. Today, major dealers, Shell and Total, sell petrol at 5,370 to 5,530 a litre, and diesel at between 4,950 and 4,990 a litre. In fact, in most places, including how we travel, most places have actually increased. They've upped the fare by around 500 to 1,000 in different places. This is a hitch on its own, but of course, we had forecast this here at Smart Means Business and said, let's keep our eyes open and find out. And hardly a week, this already is in the news. The government protests. The Energy Ministry has since protested the new fee by Kenyan authorities. Energy Minister has described the introduction of the $40 million storage fee by Kenya as a deterrent move, adding that it is not the East African Community spirit it should be. This is some sad news as well. This hiccup was anticipated. And Kenya has really been a little bit, it has really been very slippery, really very slippery in the way it's been doing. It's quite shady, actually, when you come to think about it. And we had predicted that this could be happening, and maybe the celebratory salute was done a little bit earlier than this. We mentioned this last week and said, let us wait, because clearly for Kenya, and really let's talk about it, for someone that has been benefiting from Uganda for quite many decades, very many decades, and for us to take this different milestone and say, let's cut you out of the way and start bringing in our oil you don't think that this person is going to really be very happy. They may celebrate with you, but at the back, they will be saying, we have missed out on some monies. We're beginning to see that, but get your new vision and say that. Todong's brother killed in Somalia blast. Some unfortunate news coming in. New URA State House Revenue Intelligence Unit and Strategic Unit boss speaks out on court case. Court documents reveal that the head of the newly established Uganda Revenue Authority State House Revenue Intelligence Unit, David Kalemera, was convicted of tax fraud and conspiracy to commit a felony in April 2022. He was found guilty of using falsified customs documents and conspiring with others to defraud the government of Uganda. Kalemera was accused of omitting goods and misdeclaring others to avoid paying taxes, resulting in significant losses for the government. Some dirty linen coming out into the public right now, and just fresh, very fresh. People will snip you out. You will not be able to hide all these different things. Some dirty linen coming out right now, and more snooping will happen. Mortgaging the Chibanja without landlord's consent is illegal. Archbishop designate Wokorach receives pallium from Pope. Pensioners headcount kicks off countrywide. Remember, the concern as well in this department, the pensioners, was the fact that there were quite a number of ghost pensioners, ghost teachers. Let there be more clarity, let there be more transparency, and apparently right now this is happening. There is a recount, head count. If you say you are a pensioner, where are you? And can we have your head and see you physically there? In Hoima, how it went. In Hoima, several pensioners thronged Hoima district headquarters for the physical verification exercise. A retired enrolled nurse in Hoima said the exercise was smooth and did not require them to sit for long. Within a couple of minutes, one was served and allowed to go back home. So all this is some good news there. It will bring about some good, transparency within the system instead of creating more gaps. Former Mbale City Division MP contestant arrested over defilement. What is happening? What is happening to our leaders, people? What is happening? We've got the Chambogo, the Chambogo leader, also, over that defilement. Now we have this one as well, but it also goes to show you what is happening out there, the rot within our system. A source at Naka Loke police station said it was alleged that Ariampa defiled the young girl in his car. Same as what we talked about yesterday. This car turned into lodge is something that is getting on for quite a while right now, it seems, apparently, and a lot must be done. Justice must be served, surely. Government seeks positive media coverage for investment and tourism. That's a good one. Promoting negative stories harms the nation's reputation. Well, this comes in handy. U.S. ambassador commends government on corruption fight. Uganda Lions hit swimming record, as well as suspected ADF terrorist charged and remanded. In this as well, you have Mary Karoro Okuru tell you about Museveni's achievements and legacy celebrations in spite of challenges here and there, and she says the center is still holding just fine. Within the Daily Monitor, cheap UNOC oil flows into Kenya tax storm. Uganda told not to expect reduced pump prices after the Nairobi government unexpectedly raises the bond fee at Vital Terminal, where Uganda National Oil Company is expected to offload its 90 million litres of fuel. How Kenya's new tax on fuel will affect you. Yes, like we mentioned, this is not something that is some good news coming in, but the hashtag, the part that we are more concerned about is unexpectedly. Why the unexpectedly right now? Why hadn't it been brought out? Not some good East African spirit really in the play here. President to establish new bodies to fight corruption. Opposition read mischief into security shakeup ahead of 2026 polls. The problem with our country is that the politicians think of the next election. They don't think of the next generation. For that matter, the thinking is narrow. This was said by Brigadier General Felix Kulaije, the Defense Public Information Officer. Besigye calls out Museveni on graft. State House and ruling party says the opposition politician is recycling old lies for which Ugandans already rejected his bid to run the country, and that Mr. Museveni has proven credentials as a transformative leader and anti-graft war chief. The fight is on. Enanga, the straight-faced spin master who tickled Ugandans, has been quite a darling to many. Who is Rosoke? The police spokesperson, remember there was a reshuffle last week in regards to this. Inside government's fresh plan for northern Uganda. While the government is introducing a new program for northern Uganda, local leaders have expressed mixed reactions, with some suggesting that for decades, some interventions have not transformed the lives of the local community, citing poor implementation and outright corruption by the people in charge of the programs. We are in the process of reintroducing NUSAF 4, and the designs of this program are complete. We were appointed by the president. We were asked to only focus on the livelihoods of the people. This time, we're not going to construct schools. We're not going to construct roads. We're going to inject money into the people. This was said by Robina Nabanja, the Prime Minister. Some information coming in there. And of course, you have so many coming in and saying, why now? Why the injection of money right now? What is the status, and why does it always happen slightly before the campaigns? You've got some issues coming in. Get your daily monitor as well as your new vision, some interesting news within the papers, and find out what is happening within the country and elsewhere. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Smart 24, driving business.
Blue magic is my joy. Blue magic,
Talaba kumabala atukuza nonyirirawo kirako enyange tayisa bubi fabriki kyonna kyekiri kigwa lwa blue magic is my choice. Ono blue magic ye wange and blue magic is my choice. Hey, ono blue magic ye wange.
Amanya gange nze Naswa Sharafa mbeera Kawempe era nga nkola liquid soap. Liquid soap okuva covid we yajja abantu ne batandika bagamba banabe mu ngalo awo naffe twatandikira okuyingira mu business ya liquid soap. Wano mazeewo weeks 2 era nga nkuguse mu liquid soap banyongeddemu skills mweyo yennyini product yange. Skills zenjize wano ngenda zikozesa okulaba nga product yange ekyukamu kuba era we baali batuyigiriza twayiga batuyigiriza mu business development ne batuyigiriza design thinking tuwetadde tutya mu ngato z'aba customer baffe buzibu ki bwe bafuna mu product zaffe. Twalaba omukisa ne tuddayo eri ba customer baffe ne tubabuuza bizibu ki bye basanga kati nga nze akola liquid soap ne mbuuzaako awo bizibu ki bye musanga mu business yange. Ne abamu ne baŋŋamba liquid soap w'amazzi, liquid soap ayokya. Ne tukomawo wano Madam Grace n'atuyigiriza in a practical way. Ne tuyiga liquid soap omulungi agenda okuyamba ba customer baffe. Obubaka bwennyini eri project ya Grow mbeebaza bebale kutuyigiriza bebale tu including ffe abaliko obulemu ne bateekamu kirowoozo nti tetusobola, ne bamanya nti disability is not inability. Era tusaba batongereyongere bongere otuyigiriza in other skills, ne webabaawo obusobozi batongere mu capital.
Grow, generating growth opportunities and productivity for women enterprises.